There are secrets that fade with time, and then there are secrets that grow heavier the longer they remain hidden. For Emily Carter, the weight of her secret had turned into something she felt every morning when she opened her eyes and every night before she closed them. It had been 13 years since the day everything changed, 13 years since the moment she realized silence can be both a shield and a prison. Emily lived in Willow Creek, a quiet American town framed by tall pines and a river that glittered under the summer sun. Her house, a weathered blue two-story built by her grandfather, stood at the end of Cedar Lane. It wasn't perfect. The paint chipped in places, the porch creaked, and the mailbox leaned slightly to the right, but it was home. And even though it held memories both comforting and painful, Emily stayed because she couldn't imagine living anywhere else. She worked as an assistant at the Willow Creek Community Library. It was a small job, steady and predictable, filled with returning books, organizing shelves, and greeting regular visitors, mostly retirees and high school students who needed a quiet place to work. Emily liked the calm of it. The silence of books didn't ask questions she didn't want to answer. But trouble always begins on the days that seem the most normal. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when Emily found the envelope. She arrived early, as she always did, unlocking the heavy library doors and switching on the lights one row at a time. The air smelled of dust and pages, a scent she found oddly comforting. But when she reached the main desk, she stopped. A plain white envelope lay on the counter. There was no stamp. No name, no handwriting, just a faint crease down the middle, as if someone had held it for a long time before leaving it behind. Emily rarely received mail, never at work, and something about the envelope made her heart skip. She picked it up. It was light, almost empty. She opened it slowly. Inside was one line, typed neatly on white paper. "It's time to tell the truth." Emily froze. Her hand trembled slightly as she reread the words. Once, twice, a third time. Her breath grew unsteady, and memories she tried to bury began flooding back with startling clarity. The forest, the echo of a scream, the sound of breaking branches, and the terror that had wrapped around her like a cold fist. No, she whispered to herself. No, it can't be. For 13 years she had tried to forget. But someone clearly hadn't. Someone knew. Her mind raced. Who would send something like this? Why now? And how much did they know? Before she could process it, the door opened behind her. She jumped, quickly tucking the note inside her sweater pocket. It was only her coworker, David Fletcher, a kind man in his early 40s who wore glasses too small for his face and often hummed old country songs under his breath. "Morning, Emily," he said cheerfully. "Morning," she replied, forcing a smile. "You okay? You look like you just saw a ghost." She laughed lightly, though it sounded strange even to her own ears. "Just tired, I guess." David nodded, didn't pry, and headed toward the back to sort the morning shipments. As soon as he was gone, Emily sank onto the stool behind the desk, her mind spinning. The truth was something she had locked away so deeply that sometimes even she questioned what happened. But the note made everything real again. Someone wanted her secret uncovered. And she had no idea how to stop it. That night, Emily returned home under a sky filled with autumn stars. Her house felt colder than usual as she walked inside, shrugging off her coat. She made tea and tried to distract herself with an old movie, but her eyes kept shifting to her purse. The note was still inside. She finally pulled it out, smoothing the paper on her kitchen table. The words stared back at her. Was this blackmail, a warning, or a plea? She barely slept. Every sound outside made her jolt awake. The rustle of leaves, a passing car, the wind hitting the house. By morning, she felt exhausted but determined. She couldn't hide from this forever. She needed answers. The first person she thought of was her childhood friend, Mark Rivers. Mark had been with her the day it happened, at least, up until hours before everything spiraled into chaos. He was the last person who saw her before the event she refused to talk about. After high school he'd moved away, joined the fire department in another state, and came back only occasionally to visit his parents. They weren't close anymore, but he was part of the secret, part of that long-buried chapter of her life. By afternoon, she found herself driving toward the Rivers house. It sat on the outskirts of town, surrounded by tall maple trees now turning orange. She knocked on the door, hoping Mark might be home for the weekend. His mother answered. "Emily, goodness, I haven't seen you in forever, Mrs. Rivers said with a warm smile. "Hi, Mrs. Rivers. Is Mark here by any chance?" The older woman shook her head. "No, honey, he left 2 days ago. Visiting a friend up north." Everything all right? Emily hesitated. Yeah, just wanted to catch up. Well, he'll be back next week. You're welcome to stop by then. Thanks, Emily said softly. She walked back to her car, her chest tightening. If Mark didn't send the note, then who did? That evening, she sat on her porch, staring at the trees swaying in the breeze. She thought of the girl, the one whose absence still lingered in town like an unfinished sentence. Her name had been Hannah Blake. 13 years ago, Hannah disappeared after a field trip near the forest. The police searched for weeks, but nothing was found. Rumors spread, stories twisted, and everyone created their own version of events. But only 2 people knew the truth of that last day, Emily and Hannah. And Hannah was gone. Emily took a shaky breath. She promised herself she would never speak of it. But secrets have a way of finding their way home. 2 days later, another envelope appeared, this time slipped under her front door. She found it when she came home from work, the white corner catching her eye. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a photograph of the forest clearing. The exact place she had prayed never to see again. And beneath it, another typed line. You left something behind. Emily sank to the floor, her breath sharp and uneven. Someone was playing a cruel game. Someone wanted her to return to the one place she vowed never to step into again. She curled her knees to her chest and tried to steady herself. She knew she had to go. Not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't live in fear forever. On Saturday morning she drove to the forest. The air was crisp, the path covered in fallen leaves. Each step echoed memories she had tried desperately to unremember. She followed the trail until she reached the clearing, the place the old fence had once stood broken, the place where sunlight barely pierced the canopy. She stopped. A small object lay at the center. A notebook. Her notebook. The same worn, brown journal she had lost 13 years ago. She picked it up with trembling fingers. Opening it, she found the pages intact, some filled with her teenage handwriting, others blank. But the very last page contained something new. A fresh message, written in the same typed font. Tell the truth or I will. Emily stumbled back, her heart pounding fiercely. This wasn't a prank. Someone had been here. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. But who? She rushed to her car, her mind spinning so fast she felt dizzy. For the rest of the day, she paced her living room, trying to piece together the past, trying to remember details she had spent years trying to forget. Mark came to mind again. So did Hannah. So did the shadow Emily had seen that day, the figure she could never fully identify. But the truth was something deeper. Something she had been running from. She decided she couldn't face this alone anymore. She needed help. The next night, she attended a community meeting at the local center. She had never gone before, but it was open to anyone struggling with anxiety, grief, or unresolved trauma. She sat quietly in the back, keeping her hands folded in her lap. When it was her turn to speak, she almost didn't. But then the words slipped out. I think someone from my past is trying to force me to confront something I'm not ready for, she said softly. The group leader, a kind woman named Sharon, leaned forward gently. Sometimes, she said, the truth we avoid is the truth that sets us free. Emily blinked back tears. She wanted to be free. She wanted the fear to stop. Days passed, and another note arrived. This time, it wasn't threatening. It simply read, you weren't alone that day. Emily stared at the message for a long time, confusion washing over her. She thought she had been alone. But maybe she wasn't. Maybe someone else had seen. Maybe someone else had been keeping their own secret. Her phone buzzed suddenly. It was Mark. Hey, Em, my mom said you stopped by. Everything okay? Emily hesitated, then replied, can we meet? It's important. Mark arrived at her house 30 minutes later. When she opened the door, he looked concerned. You look shaken, he said. What's going on? Emily handed him the notes. He read them slowly, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. Emily, I didn't send these. I know, she whispered. But someone did, and they want me to tell the truth about that day. Mark looked away, guilt flickering across his face. I should have stayed with you, he murmured. I should have never let you go into the woods alone. You didn't know, Emily said softly. Mark hesitated. Emily, there's something you need to know. She stared at him. He took a deep breath. I wasn't the only one who saw you go into the woods that day. Emily froze. Who? She whispered. Mark swallowed. Hannah's brother. Emily felt the world tilt. Ethan, she whispered, barely audible. Mark nodded. He followed you both, Mark said. He told me years ago, after Hannah disappeared. He said he saw something he never got over. Emily's stomach tightened. Her voice shook as she asked, "What did he see?" Mark hesitated again. "He said he saw you and Hannah arguing. Loudly. And then, he saw you run back alone." Emily's heart dropped. "No," she said softly. "That's not what happened." "Then what did happen?" Mark asked gently. Emily closed her eyes. And finally, after 13 years, she spoke the truth. She told Mark everything. How she and Hannah had wandered too far off the trail during the field trip. How Hannah had panicked after slipping down the slope, hurting her ankle. How Emily had run back to get help, promising she'd return quickly. How she'd gotten lost in the woods for hours. How by the time the search teams arrived, Hannah was gone. "I left her," Emily whispered, tears falling. "I didn't mean to. I was just a kid. I thought I could find help. I thought I was doing the right thing. But I left her alone." Mark pulled her into a comforting embrace. "Emily, it wasn't your fault. But someone thinks it is," she said shakily. "Someone thinks I'm hiding something." Mark stepped back and looked at the notes again. "Ethan," he said quietly. "It has to be him." Emily shook her head. "Why wouldn't he just confront me?" "Maybe he was angry," Mark said. "Or broken. Losing a sister, it changes you." Emily felt a heavy ache settle in her chest. She knew what she had to do. She had to talk to Ethan. The next morning, she drove to the Blake family home, a simple white house with blue shutters and a front yard filled with aging flower beds. Ethan answered the door. He was older now, in his 30s, with tired eyes and dark hair that fell across his forehead. When he saw Emily, his expression flickered between surprise and guarded tension. "Emily," he said flatly. "Didn't expect to see you. Can we talk?" she asked softly. He studied her for a moment, then stepped aside. She walked into the living room, her hands trembling. Ethan stood across from her, arms crossed. "I know you've been sending the notes," she said gently. He didn't deny it. "I didn't know how else to make you face it," he said. "You've been pretending for years. Acting like nothing happened." Emily swallowed hard. "Ethan, I never pretended. I've lived with the guilt every day." He looked at her sharply. "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was scared," Emily whispered. "Because I was a child. Because I thought everyone would blame me. And because losing Hannah broke me too." Silence hung between them, heavy and raw. Ethan's shoulders slowly slumped. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," he said quietly. "I just needed answers. I needed to know why she never came home." Tears blurred Emily's vision. "I tried to help her," she said. "But I got lost. And by the time help arrived, she was gone." Ethan let out a shaky breath. "I thought you abandoned her." "I didn't," Emily said firmly. "I loved Hannah. She was my best friend." Ethan looked at her for a long time. And then, to her relief, his expression softened. "I believe you," he said. Emily exhaled shakily, her heart trembling with release. "But there's something else," Ethan added. "Something you don't know." Emily frowned. "What?" Ethan went to a drawer in the hallway and returned with a folded piece of paper. "This was found years later," he said, handing it to her. "One of the rangers discovered it near the riverbank. They didn't know who it belonged to at the time." Emily unfolded it. Her breath caught. It was a note, written in Hannah's handwriting. "I'm going toward the river. I think I hear voices. If someone finds this, please help Emily. She's lost." Hannah. Emily felt her knees weaken. Hannah hadn't been waiting helplessly. She hadn't been abandoned. She had gone to look for her. Emily's tears fell freely, her heart breaking open with grief and healing she didn't know she needed. "She didn't blame you," Ethan said softly. "She tried to help you." Emily pressed the note to her chest. For the first time in 13 years, she could breathe. The silence she had carried inside finally cracked, allowing light to pour through. Ethan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We both lost someone," he said. "Maybe we can stop carrying it alone." Emily nodded. From that day forward, something changed. The weight she carried for over a decade began to lift. She still missed Hannah, she always would, but the guilt no longer consumed her. She began attending community meetings regularly, sharing her story when she felt ready. She and Ethan talked often, slowly rebuilding trust and understanding. Mark stayed in her life too, a steady friend reminding her she wasn't alone. And as autumn turned to winter in Willow Creek, Emily learned that healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering with grace. It's forgiving yourself for the things you couldn't control. It's speaking the truth, even when your voice trembles. For the first time in her life, Emily walked through town with her head a little higher. The truth had been painful, but it had also set her free. And the secret she could never tell was no longer a secret at all.